This is part 5 of my anime series of videos. This video describes how you could fix the Hollywood Ghost in the Shell movie and convert it from an acceptable movie into a cult classic. While I must admit this is not an anime, it is nonetheless based on an anime, which is why I've placed it here. While the original movie was acceptable, that is the Hollywood movie, it was certainly not great. Yet the source content they had to work with was brilliant. If the movie was modified just slightly, it could achieve a type of cult status which would allow it to continue to generate revenue long after its release. In its current state, that will never occur, as there is little in the original movie which would allow it to achieve cult status. A good example of what I'm talking about is Blade Runner, which may have not done so well at the box office, but has subsequently become a cult movie. The easiest way to make this movie into a cult classic would be to follow the original anime movie storyline as closely as possible. However, that would almost require reshooting the entire movie. The rules I want to follow here is how can we fix this movie with minimal effort and minimal reshoots. So we have to work with the existing scenes and characters. But this does not prohibit changing the story to more closely follow the original anime movie. Let's first break down the original story in the Hollywood movie. Hanka Robotics, a cybernetic company, kidnaps two street kids and decides to convert them into cyborgs, starting with Kuze. The attempt to convert Kuze was not successful and they decide to destroy him, but he escapes before this occurs. As a result, they convert Kusanagi, and this is successful. Kusanagi's name is changed to Killian to hide her original identity, and Hanka Robotics suppresses most of her earlier memories. Hanka Robotics then allows Killian to join an elite anti-terrorist organisation called Section 9, and after a year she has obtained the rank of Major. I'm assuming that's the case. It could be that Major just happens to be a nickname. Incidentally, the reason why Hanka Robotics did this is their plan is to sell these high-value cyborgs to anti-terrorist organisations or government organisations, and this is the pilot. Section 9 are then tasked to investigate a number of murders of Hanka Robotics employees. Killian and Section 9 intervenes in one murder and begins to track the instigator, Kuze. After a number of adventures, Killian is captured by Kuze and discovers the truth. After more adventures, the final confrontation occurs between Killian and a Hanka spider tank. Killian wins and all the bad people at Hanka Robotics are eliminated. Killian meets her real mother and goes back to Section 9. There is nothing specifically wrong with this story, but it's very simple and is a very basic story, which has a lot of credibility issue and really has no punch or depth. It's designed to be a simple story, so most of the focus can be aimed at the action scenes and CGI graphics, which is nice, but makes this simply another action movie which wastes a massive amount of potential. The first change we need to make is Motoko Kusanagi. The backstory provided in the movie breaks Ghost in the Shell canon so much it damages the character. The Ghost in the Shell canon can and has been bent many times, but the basic concept always remains consistent. In the Ghost in the Shell standalone complex canon, Motoko Kusanagi becomes the first full cyborg as a little girl after an aircraft accident. During this accident, her parents dies. You can see what she looked like in the SAC anime here. In the Arise canon, her pregnant mother dies, but the doctors save the unborn child, which becomes a cyborg in order to save it. From memory, her father also dies, and for some reason the military organisation she is part of maintains their bodies in some form of cybernetic storage, as you can see here. In the standalone complex TV series, she is the first full cyborg. In the Arise series, she is the first unborn to be made into a cyborg. There is a difference, but not a great deal. In both cases, she spends many years learning to control her cyborg body until she becomes so skillful she becomes an asset to the military, which she joins before finally joining Section 9. In the movie, she is the second full cyborg, and she only takes a year to get to be able to use her cyborg body, which kind of lacks credibility and breaks canon far too much on so many levels. In this reworked, fixed version, Motoko Kusanagi follows her standard backstory. There is no need to go into any detail, but she has been working for Section 9 for many years, and prior to this was in the military. She is highly skilled, confident, and uses her brains to solve problems, which follows the original anime movie. When reporting in, she uses her name, which is Kusanagi, and others can refer to her as Major, which was the highest rank she achieved in the military, although in a standalone complex episode it was also claimed it was a nickname. I prefer to believe it was the highest rank she achieved in the military. A point about Scarlett Johansson. She is absolutely perfect in the role of Motoko Kusanagi, and I wish she had better material to work with. Hideo Kose is a major issue, and it would have been better if he did not exist in this movie at all, but as he is here, we need to fit him into the story. In the Ghost in the Shell canon, Hideo Kose becomes a cyborg shortly after Kusanagi becomes a cyborg. Like Kusanagi, he becomes proficient in the use of his cyborg body and joins the military, the mechanized infantry from memory. He is then posted to Korea while he's in that same mechanized infantry formation. While in Korea, his unit gets involved in a massacre, and he has a breakdown after this, deserts from the army and wanders around Asia until he comes back to Japan determined to confront the current government. Later he becomes the champion of refugees in Japan, Chinese refugees in this particular case. We can use this. The backstory remains the same as the original backstory, but while wandering Asia, he is contacted by the mysterious puppet master and recruited in a plan to uncover corruption in the Japanese Section 9 organisation. He agrees, returns to Japan, and starts to target Section 9 agents. Because Kuze has not had any major maintenance for many years, his cybernetic body is in poor condition. He also has a vague link with Kusanagi, as she was the only other survivor of the same aircraft crash that he was injured in. He has also tried to blank out the memory of his involvement in the massacre in Asia. He is a very broken and disturbed person, which matches the movie perfectly. The Puppet Master is one of the most interesting characters in the original anime, but in this fixed movie we only hear the voice of the Puppet Master. The Puppet Master, or Project 2501, is an AI created by Section 6 for diplomatic and later political reasons. This AI engages in cybercrime to achieve the objectives of Section 6, and in the process has become sentient. Once it becomes a sentient being, it considers the activities of Section 6 to be immoral and wants to stop, as well as it wants to evolve. It initially considers Kuze as a good candidate to merge with and evolve, but Kuze is too damaged by his experiences in the military and cannot be used for this purpose. Project 2501, during the movie, discovers Kusanagi and then comes to the conclusion that she is probably the best candidate to assist in it evolving to its next stage. Section 6 is a Japanese intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance unit which establishes contact with an American company, Hanaka Robotics, which was both creating cyborg bodies and created Project 4501. We never see anyone from Section 6, but the CEO of Hanaka Robotics, Kata, eventually comes to the conclusion that to keep his nice, profitable relationship with Section 6, Kuze and Kusanagi must die. As a result, he creates a plot to convince Section 9 that Kusanagi has gone rogue and must be eliminated. When that fails, he tries to eliminate Section 9. The Section 9 team, as it existed in the movie, is fine. Bato specifically is excellent. I would have liked more time with Togusa, but we can go with the characters in the movie as it stands, and it works quite well. The movie could end in one of two ways. It could end as the original anime, ending with Kusanagi merging with Project 2501, or not. If Kusanagi does not merge, the possibility of her merging in the future can remain. If the latter occurs, we need Kuze to provide the main conclusion impact. Kuze dies, with the main impact being both Kuze and Kusanagi recognising each other from the hospital after the aircraft accident which injured both of them. Kuze could even enter the cyber brain and live in a virtual manner. While not evolving with Project 2501, his mind could actually enter the same world that Project 2501 exists in. This is possibly the best ending, as it allows for sequels, and it also allows for Kuze to kind of come back in sequels in a cyber manner. Let's now look at the way the new movie should operate. The movie begins with Kusanagi on the building investigating why Section 6 agents are being murdered. This scene on top of the building should be extended greatly, as a lot of the original background dialogue from the anime movie was not included in the real movie. This needs to be inserted because it's actually critical and adds a lot of mystery and mystic clues, which the fans would pick up immediately, and even non-fans may remember and then realise how significant it is later. Inside the building, which Kusanagi is sitting on top of, a Section 6 agent is discussing supplying weapons to an African dictator in exchange for mining rights. Kusanagi is monitoring this conversation when she notices a group of men approaching the room, of course electronically. She decides it's an attack and acts, also alerting the Section 9 SWAT team. A group of men under the control of the puppet master head towards the meeting. They are heavily armed and burst into the room shooting. At the same time, the robots, which are also controlled by the puppet masters, grabs most of the people in the meeting. One robot tries to pump information from the Section 6 agent. Kusanagi comes into the room from the window, killing all the attackers and destroying the robots, but she is unable to save any of the people which were attacked. Just before she destroys the last robot, it calls out to her, "Help me." This is the mystery Kusanagi decides to follow up. After the mission, Kusanagi goes back to her apartment, has a sleep, and when she wakes up, she starts to see unusual images, such as a cat in a shower. The memory issues Kusanagi experienced are caused by Project 2501's attempt to contact a suitable human to merge with. This causes Kusanagi to be concerned, as she is uncertain what this means. She also doubts her existence as a human, as occurred in both movies. It's possible that Project 2501 may have implanted that in her mind. Concerned, Kusanagi goes back to Hanukkah Robotics to get checked out, but nothing comes of this. But the Ark is a mechanism to explore the idea she doubts her existence, because Project 2501 is trying to find or contact her. Perhaps this idea was planted, as I've indicated earlier, in Kusanagi's mind by Project 2501 in an attempt to make it easier for her to agree to merge with him, or some other purpose. After the experience in her apartment, Kusanagi and Bato goes to the cybernetic specialist who is studying the robots that were taken over by the puppet master. Kusanagi dives into the cyber brain of the robot, which called out for help, and discovers Project 2501 and Kuze. Kusanagi and Project 2501 spend some time conversing, which is an attempt by Project 2501 to take over Kusanagi. This fails, but Kusanagi gains some information about Kuze's location before just getting out in time before being taken over by Project 2501. The information the robot provided indicate Kuze was at a nightclub. The nightclub scene follows the original flow. Kusanagi gains some more information, but the nightclub was actually a trap, which Kusanagi only just manages to escape with her life. She is damaged and Bato is injured. Personally, I would have preferred if Bato started the movie with full cybernetic eyes, because in the original series he was a full cyborg similar to Kusanagi. But in order to follow the movie, we can assume this is the event which causes him to enhance his cybernetic ability and get his eyes redone. Kusanagi and Bato are repaired. I would also encourage the movie to imply that he is mainly cyborg. It's only parts of him, or small parts, which are still human. That way, at least, we get into a halfway ground between the original canon and the movie. Now we come to the lesbian encounter. Kusanagi can have a lesbian encounter, or it could be cut out. In the original movie, it added absolutely nothing to the movie. However, we could possibly insert something here. Perhaps Project 2501 somehow communicates with the lesbian woman that Kusanagi has an encounter with, and Kusanagi gets more information. Or maybe we could just leave it as in the original movie where it doesn't add anything. In order to ensure the movie is filled out to the correct length, we probably should include it, but it really is a pointless scene in this movie. In the anime, standalone complex, Kusanagi does have a lesbian relationship. In the manga, she has a heterosexual relationship with an agent from another section, but the anime creators did not wish to draw a man's bottom and decided to change the sexual partner to a woman so they could draw a female bottom. So much for, diversity and equality of the sexes. In the original manga, Kusanagi has lesbian lovers, as I mentioned, but they really do have a point to the story, which unfortunately in this movie there doesn't seem to be a point. The information Kusanagi obtains in the nightclub, or perhaps even in the lesbian encounter, it doesn't really matter, or maybe a combination of the two, allows Section 9 to identify someone the puppet master has taken over. This leads them to a garbage man who is also controlled by the puppet master and is engaged in some sort of mission. The garbage man arc is unchanged, but in the end Kusanagi does not lose her temper. The single critical point which needs to change is Kusanagi is always calm and under control when in a combat situation. In the original content, that is the anime, she only really loses it fully once when some guy in some kind of robot armoured suit almost kills her. She also almost or partially loses it in the Arise series, but not really excessively. Generally, 99% of the time, she is cool, calm and collected and always knows exactly what she's doing, even if sometimes she fails. During the interrogation of the garbage man, Kusanagi is once again contacted by Project 2501 and gets another lead, or at least gets some information. Kusanagi follows this lead, but is captured and speaks to Project 2501 through Kuze. Now, of course, the lead was probably a trap from the beginning, so for whatever reason we thought that Project 2501 contacted Kusanagi to take over or to communicate or to try and convince. It doesn't matter. The point being is the real objective was to provide a lead which would eventually result in Kusanagi being captured. Now that Kusanagi is captured, Project 2501 explains what it is, what Section 6 has done and how Hankei Robotics is involved. Project 2501 asks to merge with Kusanagi, which she initially rejects. Project 2501 lets her go and asks her to think about it. It is hoping she will change her mind. Perhaps it's even calculated that she simply will have no choice but to accept it because of her doubts of her humanity, which possibly Project 2501 has discovered by this point. It knows that eventually Kusanagi would agree. That could be one spin. The other spin is that Project 2501 has probably decided that trying to forcibly take over Kusanagi is counterproductive. It doesn't really matter which of the arcs or mini arcs follow. They both achieve the same thing. She is allowed to escape. Now that Kusanagi has escaped, she is uncertain if the information provided is correct. After all, why should she believe Project 2501? So she goes to a cybernetic doctor at Hankei Robotics for information. During the conversation, the cybernetic doctor provides Kusanagi with critical information which links Hankei Robotics with Project 2501. Later, the cybernetic doctor tells the CEO of Hankei this information. The CEO, Cutter, orders her to call in Kusanagi for some urgent maintenance and in order to kill her. We now have the scene out on the water on the boat, which is a pretty critical scene. I would sort of let it flow similar to the way it was, her floating up, etc., and then discussing. Now, once she's on the boat, Kusanagi wants to discuss the information she has discovered with Bato, who in the end agrees with Kusanagi that Section 6 and Hankei Robotics are probably corrupt. I'm not sure why he would agree. I think these two characters need to have a special bond, which is why Kusanagi decided to confide in Bato and why Bato decides that he agrees with Kusanagi. She also discusses Project 2501 with Bato and tells him she is seriously considering merging with it, as she still feels she may not be real. Bato has no opinion about the latter and brushes it off as a trick. but secretly is worried he will lose Kusanagi. But he is loyal to Kusanagi and does what Kusanagi wants him to do, which is to provide the information to Aramaki. Shortly after Kusanagi gets off the boat, possibly on her way to Section 9 or somewhere, we're not quite sure, the cybernetic doctor calls in Kusanagi with some excuse about she has some additional information or maybe some maintenance issue. Again, it doesn't really matter what the purpose is. The point is that Kusanagi has to go back to Hanko Robotics. Once she gets to Hanko Robotics, the doctor attempts to kill her, but the doctor then decides to change her mind for some reason and lets Kusanagi go, as in the original movie. Now, in the actual show, I can't remember which one it was, Kusanagi actually smelled a rat and managed to escape using some trickery, killing the doctor when she did it. It doesn't really matter which way it is, whether or not the doctor allows Kusanagi to go or whether or not Kusanagi managed to escape and kill the doctor. If the doctor lets her go, Kata will kill the cybernetic doctor and blames Kusanagi for her murder. If Kusanagi does kill the cybernetic doctor, well, then Kusanagi did kill the cybernetic doctor. Whatever it is, he then informs Section 9 that Kusanagi has gone rogue, has killed the cybernetic doctor, and has some major problem that requires Kusanagi to be killed or eliminated. Kata decides to meet Aramaki and provide this information that Kusanagi has probably gone rogue, and orders him to kill Kusanagi, but Aramaki refuses. This is because Bato has already provided Aramaki with Kusanagi's suspicions. Kata threatens Aramaki and plans to kill everyone. Kusanagi is now on the run from Hanko Robotics in Section 6, as she knows how powerful Hanko Robotics in Section 6 is. She remembers a memory which Project 2501 had left in her mind. The memory is a contact if she wants to speak with Project 2501. She goes to the contact and meets an older Japanese woman who then tells her where to go if she wants to meet Project 2501 again. Project 2501 cannot directly contact her as it would alert Section 6 to their locations. However, Kusanagi is not aware that Hanko Robotics has a tracker built into her body and knows exactly where she is. At this point, Hanko Robotics attempts to kill the rest of Section 9. This can pretty much flow as in the original movie. There's no need to change it. Although it always annoys me the way that Aramaki is such a badass shooter. In the original series, he was very much the brains. In reality, he should have been guarded by one of his agents who should have done the killing here. But anyway, it is what it is. In order to meet Project 2501, Kusanagi goes to an abandoned warehouse where she meets Kuze. Kusanagi gets more information from Project 2501 through Kuze and tells the AI she would like some time to think about merging, as well as what would happen if she merged. After this discussion ends, Kuze recognizes Kusanagi and tells her he was the boy who was in the same aircraft accident as her. I would add a scene of the hospital as per the SAC anime. Kuze is mentally damaged by an atrocity he was involved with in Asia, and as a result has blocked out many of his earlier memories. Meeting Kusanagi causes his memories to return and allows him to come to terms with the innocent civilians that he had previously murdered. Then the spider tank attacks, and it plays out as per the movie. As per the movie, Kusanagi destroys the tank but is damaged and lays next to Kuze, unable to move. Some more discussion with Kuze occurs, where he comes to terms with what he has done and decides he wants to join the cyber mine. Kusanagi also decides to merge with Project 2501, but then Kuze is killed by a sniper and Kusanagi loses the link to Project 2501. We do not know if Kuze manages to get into the cyber mine, but if it's the same as SAC, he does. After Kuze has been killed by the sniper, which presumably is in a helicopter hovering around somewhere, Kusanagi is the next target and the helicopter decides, or the sniper decides to target her. But Bato saves Kusanagi. The best way of doing this would be he has a sniper rifle which destroys the helicopter and then rushes over to Kusanagi to see what else that he can do. Some deep conversation occurs between the two. Bato is glad Kusanagi has not merged with Project 2501. Cutter is killed by Section 9, Section 6 and Hanka Robotics is purged of corruption, and Project 2501 disappears. Motoko goes to a graveyard, but the gravestone is for Kuzei. The woman appears, who is Kuzei's sister. Kusanagi tells her that her brother died at peace and was a good man. It must be remembered that both Kusanagi and Kuzei are actually much older than they look. They are cyborgs which do not age. I guess that in the original series, or in the original movie, Kusanagi could even be 90 years of age. So, they're not children. Just an interesting note. We now tail to the end of the movie in a similar way to the actual movie has occurred. Section Knight starts on its next mission as per the movie, looking cool and aggressive. And somewhere far away, Kusanagi, on top of a building, is coordinating with Section 9. Kusanagi watches over the city, wondering where Project 2501 is. But the ending is as per the movie. She knows what she is and what she is to do, which is to be justice in an unjust world. I would probably prefer to end the movie with some really dramatic scene with Kusanagi. Kusanagi, engaged target. End movie. Maybe I should have actually started my video with this, but just so for those who don't actually know that much about Ghost in the Shell, Motoko Kusanagi is, of course, our hero, the female cyborg. Chief Daisuke Aramaki is her boss. Bato is her partner, and Kuzei is the other cyborg. Sumimasen, watashi no nihongo ya yoku arimashin. Arigatou gozaimasu. Komo video o maite kurete.